Mr. Stowers, it's Wednesday. I was about to say happy Thursday, but we've been a little bit off schedule the last month or so, but happy Wednesday to you.
More importantly, happy November. Can you believe that?
Happy November. I just saw one of my friend's wife just put up a Christmas tree already.
Yeah, yeah. As you know, Bud and I have been spending quite a bit of time setting up our outdoor Christmas decorations, which is just white lights, which is quite the chore
When are you actually putting up a tree inside the house?
after Thanksgiving.
After Thanksgiving.
We go tier one, tier two. What?
Ours is going to be interesting this year because we just bought cats last year and we didn't put up a Christmas tree because the cats and they're wild. They're great cats, but they're wild and we knew it was just not going to work, but I did not like it and so I said to hell with it. I'm putting up a tree this year.
David, when we had our black lab puppy, which he was, just rambunctious, we got a Christmas tree and we only decorated the top half because he liked to grab the bulbs and break them in his mouth. And then what we did is we got giant bulbs and we hung them from ribbons from the roof. And so it was really funky. Like the bottom of the tree was just blank, and then a highly decorated tree, and then a bunch of effects from the roof. It was actually pretty cool. At least
Yeah.
I thought so.
Well, Kelly is passionate about her glass Christmas tree ornaments. She bought some really nice ornaments about 6 years ago or so, and so I'm not allowed to put the nice ornaments on there. So I may have to go out to Walmart and buy some cheap crap.
Yeah, Rite Aid is out of business now, but you used to be able to buy 30 indestructible bulbs for like $1.99. You know, and the great thing is that you can use them as ornaments, or if you drink too much eggnog, you can use them as soft pitch softball, in the living room to test the unbreakableness of them.
I'm sure there's plenty to choose from on Amazon these days. But you ready to get
Yeah.
into today's topics or talk about what we're talking about?
I am. We had to, skinny it down from about 300 topics that we had backlogged because we haven't been on in like 3 weeks. Just the schedules, travel, things, which is not what we wanted to do, but we're back and we'll be back every week for the foreseeable future. And so we have so much to talk about. Let's get going. We'll
Yeah,
try to move quickly too, because if we
Ron.
go too long, it will we won't be able to go through half the topics.
Yeah, Ron, you were traveling literally the world. So we're back in our
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
our in our jam and let's get going. So first thing we're talking about, 7 hidden mistakes that agents are making. Ron, you got any words on that one?
No, it's really good. They apply to whether you're an agent, loan officer, really just almost everyone. And it's the blinding flash of the obvious, which we often miss.
Right. And then our next topic, the cheapest month to buy a home. We won't say how much, but yeah, which surprised me when you shared this article with me because I just saw a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. I think it was the second week in October was the best week to buy a house, which was a little bit surprising. But this is all about the best month.
Yeah, it all depends on what metric you're following. It's just a different insight and a way to really kind of encourage everyone to rally up the troops for January.
Yeah. And then our third topic is a very data intense topic, but home sales and data in 2026.
Yeah, and and as promised, I continue to be confused by this topic, but I'm pretty sure. I'm not really sure. This David, what is this? I screwed this up when we were practicing. What is this topic again?
That's okay. It's all about the data and what it tells us about home sales in 2026, which we've got 6 slides for. Going back to
Yeah,
2013 and then showing the 2013, then 2018, and so on.
yeah. Okay, there you go.
Right. All right. So let's dive into the 7 hidden mistakes. Ron, Ron, you're gonna lead the way, and you're gonna have to keep me awake because I was up until 6 a.m. this morning. So
We're such different creatures. You really your juices flow. Really, your peak is 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. My peak is 3 a.m. to maybe 7 to 8 a.m.
I wouldn't say
So
I peak at 6 a.m. It was a drag to stay up till then, but I'm headed on a trip and I had to get a lot done. So I my best times are usually 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. 6 a.m. is not normal, but hey, you got to do what you got to do.
you got to do what you got to do, and good job. Yeah, let's do this. Let's go through them. I kind of like all of them.
Yeah. All right. Let's start with the first slide. Or so the 7 hidden mistakes agents are making. So I think these are these mostly going to be text based? I think so. So number
Yeah.
one.
So, by the way, I want to keep saying it could be agent, it could be a loan officer. Number one, of course, is ignoring AI instead of leaning into it. And on this point, and then by the way, I love the person that writes this. I follow him, religiously. I'll get you guys his name in a second. He is so good to follow, and he's worth subscribing to Inman. But what he goes on to say is, look, you can succeed without AI, but just know your competition is going to kick your ass. Like eventually, they're just going to give a better experience, better advice, move more, do more. And so it's a huge mistake to not learn it, even though you'll be fine without it, at least in the short term.
Do you really think there's that many people who aren't using it, like professionals, industry professionals that aren't using it? Because I hear people say that all the time. We know the quote, you won't be replaced by AI, you'll be replaced by someone who uses AI and so on. I find it hard to believe that there's that many people that aren't using it yet.
Well, I think that quote, by the way, is dated. I think you can be replaced by AI. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
but no, I mean, David, the stats are something extraordinary. Like something like only 5% of people actually have a paid subscription to an AI tool.
Wow.
Now, what happens is I think a lot of loan officers and real estate agents use AI through their company's subscriptions. Like the AI is built in to what they use. Like let's pretend it's built into Encompass or Salesforce or Total Expert or Optimum Blue. And from that, they think they're fully using AI, and that is a use of AI. But then you use a general AI tool on top of that. And I'm not so certain everybody does. And if they do, they might just dip their toes into, I'm going to have ChatGPT help me write this thank you letter, this email, which is just only, as you know, a micro fraction of the things you could do to achieve productivity with an AI tool.
Yeah. Number two.
And by the way, this is Jimmy Burgess who wrote this article. He's a frequent contributor of Inman, and he's worth getting a subscription to Inman just to read his stuff. I have yet to read something that I didn't really appreciate that he wrote. Yeah, David, this is really in your bailiwick, a failing to build a personal brand. It's really versus relying on your company's brand. And it just implores you, look, your customers really don't care about your company. They care about you. And so you need to make sure you're deliberate about building your brand. I'm sure you would agree with that.
Yeah, I don't think I have enough time to actually go into this, but I wrestled with that for a long time because obviously running brand for large companies, I was always kind of the cheerleader for the corporate brand, but my audience was loan officers. They're like, no, I want my personal brand. But I believe, is what's the saying? As the tides rise, all ships rise or raise. I do believe that they can have some synergies. But absolutely, having a personal brand, you'll lose out to someone who does. But I also don't think you need to completely cut yourself off from your corporate brand either, because if they've got it, well, if they've got a strong brand, then absolutely you marry those two together. If they don't, then obviously not.
Yeah, and I think one of the points here is that in today's world, consumers demand trust. They have to trust you, and they're more likely to create trust with the person helping them than trust with the company that person works for.
Right. Yep. Number three.
All right, number three is chasing leads instead of investing relationships. I really like that. In the article, Jimmy says he quoted another contributor saying, "Hey, I don't invest in leads; I invest in breakfasts. Like I invest in getting belly to belly versus buying blind leads." I love that. In truth, I don't think you do one or the other. I think you do all. But what you can't do is ignore these things.
I was reading the last part of that. Okay. No comments from me. Number four.
All right, number four is this is I'm going to twist this a little bit. I'm going to use a current kind of theme from Dave Savage. And so number 4 is, it's a mistake to wait for the market instead of creating momentum. And as Dave Savage's his real drive the last 4 or 5 months has been, the loan officers of the future that succeed go out and create the market or create the opportunity. They don't wait for the opportunity to come to them. That is so true. You have to go. You have to go, because today, you know what? You got to go. There's plenty of people that can buy a home. There's plenty of people that can refinance, but they're stuck and they're paralyzed. You got to go find those people. You got to educate those people. You got to pull them forward for their own good. You can't wait for the market, just that tide, to lift them up and let them drift towards you. That's just not going to work in the future.
Butts and seats, right?
Butts and seats. That's right.
Number 5.
Number 5. Now, see, this is, by the way, this is where I have a little bit of problem with this title, where the 7 hidden mistakes. There's nothing hidden about this. If you're neglecting your database, you need to be a kindergarten teacher. I can't say it more clearly than that. If you're not calling your past clients, if you're not calling your sphere of influence, and you're in mortgage or real estate, you're in the wrong profession. And I'm saying this knowing that most loan officers and most real estate agents don't call their database. It's the craziest thing in the whole world, and why other companies are spending literally billions of dollars to figure out how to get a hold of your clients, and you actually have direct access to them and don't use it. That is just crazy. Like I said, I really recommend, becoming a school teacher.
Ron, you've been a leader of loan officers for a long time. And how big of a problem was that when you were in a leadership position?
It's a problem. I
Personally.
can't believe it's a huge problem, David, and it's still a problem today. If you were asking me, gosh, what are some of the top issues, facing loan officers today or lenders today? The number one issue is we're not putting a fence around our clients. We're not contacting our past clients. The second issue is that we're not using the company resources. The adoption rate on technologies and things like that is as abysmal. And the third issue is we're just not leveling up fast enough to get better faster and offer better experiences, better services. We're still sticking too much to the past. Those would be the top 3 things by far, in that order.
How would you overcome that with your loan officers? How would you get them to that place?
It's so hard, David. This is, maybe I'm getting old, but if I were to lead a mortgage company again, I would probably just hire people that believe in that versus trying to convert these folks that have never done it.
Yeah,
because I just don't know if they are.
Right.
I remember back in the early 2000s, David, and you'll remember this too. The controversy, and it's still there, but it's not quite as strong, is who owns the client. Like Countrywide believed that borrower was their client. They didn't care who originated the loan. They don't care whether it came from one of their internal loan officers, a call center, a wholesale. They didn't care less. They knew they owned that client, and that whoever originated that loan was in the back seat. Today, we don't have that conflict as much. There is in some companies, but it's not quite the conflict it used to be. And so companies accept that the loan officer owns the client, but then when the loan officer never calls the client, what is that company supposed to do? And so what I think you're going to see, David, is you're going to see here in the next 10 years, the pendulum's going to swing back the other way, where the company is going to claim primary ownership of the clients. And if their loan officers are negligent by not staying in a relationship or staying in contact, the company is going to run over them to maintain that relationship with the client.
Yeah. So again, I've never been a loan officer, but what does that look like for a loan officer maintaining a relationship with all of their past clients? Because I've owned how many houses? 5 or so. I've never really wanted to have a relationship with my loan officer. What does that look like?
Yeah, and David, this is such a good topic and good question, because we misconceive relationship into I send them some shitty email once a month. Right. Or I subscribe to the marketing, journey, and we do a 13 touch campaign every year or a 15 touch campaign and think we're in relationship. That's not a relationship. Today, relationship, the way the consumer demand is one, are you connected to the customer? Do you actually show care, like you care about the customer? And do you add value all the time? Not sometimes. I don't mean send them a peanut butter cookie recipe, but I say, David, you're my client. I know you. I constantly serve you throughout the year. I serve the financial plan we built to help your family create wealth. I'm instrumental in it. I'm instrumental in helping you achieve your life dreams, your goals. If I serve that every day, I'm in relationship with you, right? If I know your goals, I ask you how you're doing. How can I help you? Hey, Dave, I know you want to achieve X. I just came across this. I think this will help you achieve it. What can I do to help you? Well, if somebody was doing that for you, David, you would 100% think about them when you went to buy another house.
Yep.
You're just not going to think about them when you got to get some spam in your inbox. That's not relationship.
Yep. Yep. I don't think I've used the same loan officer twice. Well, I'm a little bit unique because the last 3 mortgages I've worked for a mortgage company. So that, yeah. Anyway, we got to move on. I think we're
Yeah.
go.
And by
Go
the way,
ahead.
just because I'll keep right on this, David, here's the thing. If a loan officer or a real estate agent, whatever the person serving you, if they change your life, I promise you, you'll use them repeatedly.
Yeah.
If they tax you, you're not going to use them again. And we have to understand that. And how do we become that valuable that we can change our client's life? I mean, that's what makes a difference, right?
Yep.
That's what elevates us. But anyway, I know we're
Yeah. Well, I don't
moving
plan on buying another. Well, I was gonna say I don't plan on moving, but you never know. Maybe a beach house one of these days. I'll buy a house out in Carlsbad. Be your neighbor.
Love that.
All right, number 6.
All right, overlooking their Google business profile. David, you can speak to this much better than I can, but you absolutely have to understand how you show up online, and you have to manage it. And it starts with a great Google business profile for somebody, Googles you. But now today, it's not just Google, it's everything. It's also, AI tools. How do you show up? You got to audit yourself, and then you got to make sure you're starting to manage how you show up.
Yeah, I mean, 5 years ago that was number 1. It's no longer number 1. Still important, but yeah, 100%. And then lastly, with number 7.
Yeah. By the way, David, going back to number 6, I know I'm just going on this, but go back to number 6. One of my favorite things to do when I either enter a company or I'm part of the leadership of a company is we do an audit on everybody's, digital presence, and it's the best thing because we usually hire interns at colleges, and like last time I was hiring interns from NYC, and we give them a list of questions, and it was like, would you hire this person as a loan officer? Are they believable? Do you think they're telling the truth? Does their online image align with what the search is trying to do? Like a questionnaire they fill out, it is so brutal. Like, could you even find them? Like, and we'd have the loan officers fill out the sheet, and then we'd have the auditor, fill out the sheet, and then we'd meet with every one of those loan officers. Goes, okay, here's what you said. Here's what an objective person doesn't even know you. It doesn't know a thing. How do we reconcile this? It's so good. And by the way, thank you, Brenda Henry. She's the one that got me turned on to that.
Who?
Brenda Henry.
I think I know Brenda Henry. Do I?
You know Brenda Henry. Brenda Henry runs a great, huge region for Loan Depot. She is a phenomenal leader.
That's right. Yep. Okay,
Yeah.
let's move on to number 7.
Yeah, this number 7 is really important, trying to go it alone. And what it really speaks to is, look, we don't become a sharp enough sword or a strong enough instrument on our own. We need people to pour into us, coach us, mentor us. We need new feedback. We need to get better, and we just don't get better fast enough on our own. And so you got to find that accountability partner, that mentor, that coach, those new inputs, that content that drive you to be better. Because if you don't get better, you're gonna be left behind.
All righty. No more comments from me because we're running behind. Let's talk about January being the cheapest month to buy a house. Ron, what say you?
We're going to catch up on this one. This is interesting, David, because, we've had controversy on this. You recently read an article that indicated October was the best time. There's certainly different time periods, but what happens is why they say January is the best time, there's far fewer buyers out there buying. There's just far less competition. And the sellers that are selling in January are usually highly motivated, or else they wouldn't be selling in January. So the net result is homes sell for less with higher concessions. And in the study that we're using in this for our comparison here, is it used the average dollar per square foot. Every month, the average dollar per square foot. And they did by different markets. It was funny because not all markets behave the same. I think the widest, variation between the highest dollar per square foot and the highest month, which is May, and the lowest month was January, was Hawaii. And it was a significant, I think it was 25% difference in the average cost per square foot. But the way the results came in, I think we might have a chart on this too.
We've
Yeah,
got
you know
6
what?
slides on this topic, Ron.
Yeah, is that the slide on this topic right here? I could be, you know,
No, we've only got 2
I,
slides on here. You want us to move to the other one?
what's the other one? Oh yeah, thank you. Oh, thank you. It is. It's twice I've screwed this up, David. So this is this show. This chart shows the average price per square foot by month. You can see it's the lowest, significantly in January. It's the highest in May. And so, if in this example, I think this is for a $400,000 home, is you save $23,000 over the life of the home if you bought in January versus a May. And by the way, the previous slide, which I was completely confused about, I'm sorry, and you guys won't believe this, we actually practiced twice. The previous slide that I'm totally screwed up it speaks to what's the actual seasonality of home buying, and what you can see the black line is like the last 10 years, and the green line is last year. You can see the seasonality is shifting a little bit. We're buying fewer homes in December than we used to be. We're buying more homes in May than we have been in the past. Now that's only 1 year, data, so that may be skewed a little bit because there could be some, economic things that are driving that too. But generally speaking, you save about $23,000 if you buy the same house in January versus if you bought it in May, and that difference actually is accentuated in different regions of the country, including Hawaii is number one. There's a handful of areas that are actually significant delta between the two, and some that really have no change.
Do you think when potential buyers hear that, that's actual motivation? Because I just did some rough math. That's like $65 per month, $23,000 split up over 30 years, 12 payments per year. I just did some rough math, $65 per month.
I'm sorry, it really 23,000 divided by 360 is 65. My math might be a little off.
I think I was trying to use my calculator while 23.
It's so funny. Yeah, I'm gonna make a joke about this in a second.
Are you doing the math?
I am doing the math. I am indeed. Okay.
Am I right or am I wrong?
63.88. You are spot on, dude. Couldn't be more right.
So that's my question. Do you think that really moves the needle for people when loan officers or whoever are saying January is the best time of the year to buy? Do you think $63 per month? I mean, 23,000 is not chump change, but boiled down over 360 months. Do you think that's a needle mover?
No, not at all. I don't think
it is either.
Not at all. It's just like, when, United Wholesale Mortgage say if you use, a broker, you save, $10,000 with the life of your loan. Like,
right.
That's insignificant. But more importantly, David, it's a different narrative if I'm a loan officer or real estate agent and I'm calling my approval base going, hey, I don't know if you know this, but January is historically the best time to buy a home, maybe we need to, dust off your pre-approval. Maybe we need to get you out, you're looking. Maybe we need to get you excited. And by the way, this gave me a reason to call you versus send you a peanut butter cookie recipe, right? And so that's more important than whether it's actually meaningful or not.
Right. It gives people like Housing Wire and Mortgage News Daily stuff to research and talk about. So there's that.
More importantly, it gives loan officers and real estate agents something to talk about. Like I said, other than the peanut butter cookie recipe. Probably I love peanut butter cookie.
Alrighty, are we ready for topic 3?
Yeah, let's do it.
So this is the one that keeps on getting you tripped up, Ron. But the latest mortgage data. I think this is the one we have 6 slides on. That's very data heavy. So let's
this
roll
is
into
great.
the first one.
This is great. So I love this topic and I advocated for it. What this actually has to do is the lock-in effect. That's a better way to explain this. And the argument is that the lock-in effect keeps getting weaker and weaker. And what we have is this is a super data-rich article, which I hope you guys get a chance to look at. But one of the things we see now is that there's just as many people with an interest rate over 6% than under 3%, which is really good news. and that the average outstanding interest rate has shifted from 3.9% to 4.4%, which doesn't sound like a lot. But what that means is that there's 4 million or 5 million more people that are in the money to refinance because of that shift. And the article makes a really, this is where the title, Dave, of our section comes from, as looking at 2026. The longer the interest rates stay in the sixes, the more that starts to break apart the lock-in effect of people being stuck with lower rates. Because the more people that buy a home or refinance the 6% range gives us a much bigger market that will continue to refinance. And the article does a great job. And it starts to talk about the behavior of people that have an interest rate, above 5 versus the people that have an interest rate below 4. The people that have an interest rate below 4, they're staying put. As a matter of fact, the average tenure for ownership right now is 11 years, the highest it's been, I think, since we've been tracking it. It's 11 years. Back, to give you an idea, the average length somebody actually stayed in their home was 6 years, and there was a while the average length they kept their mortgage got under 30 months. Today, those things are completely bastardized because of the lock-in effect. But that's starting to weaken a little bit. And because people have a rate above 5%, they're actually more mobile. They're moving more. They're refinancing. They're not locked in. It's the people below. And it's interesting because that's having a societal effect, David, that would be really interesting to talk about. So when you have a low interest rate, you're less likely to take a different job. You're less likely to relocate. Your whole quality of life starts to get affected because you're locked into that 3% interest rate, which seems like the dumbest thing. I'm going to lower my quality of living for 2 decades because I have a 3% interest rate. Makes no sense to me, but that's still the psychology of it. But it's starting to break apart. And David, the thing that we're going to look at these other graphs on this, and there's some really amazing data that I think a lot of us wouldn't have expected.
Yeah.
This, David, you and I were talking about, I was ranting a little bit. This is one of the most ill-conceived charts, in my opinion. And what this says is that the outstanding loan to value on all properties owned is 56%. So there's 44%, hypothetically, equity on everyone's home. But unfortunately, this data right here includes the 40% of homeowners that own their home free and clear. And so if you extract that 40% of homeowners that own the house free and clear, the average actually equity position for people that have financing on a property is somewhere between 75 and 80%. But nevertheless, it simply says there's simply a lot of equity. But I like the next slides, David.
Yeah.
Because this is when we get into the heart of this. And this is so good. And by the way, this came from a Compass study. And this Compass study, I think, was reported in Housing Wire. But here's what it says. I really like this as a visual. The purple line is the market rate, and that's the current rate offered. And let's say, I don't know, let's just say our current rate offered is 6.25 today, right? And the blue rate is the average rate for all outstanding loans. So if you look at the most recent quarter, it looks like the outstanding interest rate was around 6 3/8. But that the market rates around 6 3/8, and the outstanding rates around 4.3 or 4.4, and that delta is bad. When the market rate is above the outstanding rate, we have a lending, mortgage, and housing recession. It's not good, right? We get that lock-in effect. Volumes dramatically crash. As a matter of fact, when we saw this line cross, we went from a $4.2 trillion market to a $1.6 trillion market in about 60 days. And that was exceptionally severe. And we got into this, housing recession, which is interesting because Scott Bessent just acknowledged that. But so that's all interesting. So you can see we had just decades long of having this boom where the market rate was below the average outstanding rate. And so that there was plenty of motivation for homeowners to refinance. There's plenty of motivation to go buy a different home because your financing was going to be cheaper, which allowed you to have a higher purchase price. And then you see this graph, we had this little blip in 2018. And if you were in the business in 2018, and if you were in mortgage leadership, you knew that was a very cold winter. And in fact, many really big companies almost didn't make it through 2018, where we had 2 quarters where the market rate was above the outstanding rate, and volume dropped in half, and that crippled the entire industry that was really ill financed, right? We had such low liquidity that really big companies without that big didn't have a lot of liquid assets, nearly went out of business. It didn't take a lot. Now, the difference this time, David, if you look at it from a lender's perspective, is we had a boom market for so long that so many lenders had just a war chest of gold that they had made from the previous 3 years that they could afford those losses for longer. Where going into the 2018, we didn't have that liquidity to afford it. But this is a really insightful chart, and we're going to get something. We're going to make a point in a chart or two. But before they do that, David, do you have thoughts on this?
No, it seems like I have this thought on a lot of the charts that you find. I'm like, I wish it went back 10 more years. Would it paint a different picture if we saw the 08, 09, 07?
Yeah, it's such a good question, David, because and this is something that we're going to talk about, I think, in the next slide, maybe. McKenna, can we go to the next slide? Yeah, so here's let's go one more slide over.
Skip one.
Yeah, this is exactly what I'm talking about. So, David, this is you asked such a good question, and here's what I'm going to say, just to surprise everybody, and then to answer your question. The actual outstanding mortgage rate right now is approaching what the outstanding mortgage rate was before the pandemic. So before the pandemic, the average outstanding interest rate, that is before 2020, was 4.4%. And right now, we're right on the cusp of getting to 4.4% again. And we don't think that because we have recency bias. Like, we think rates were really high forever, and then we had the pandemic, and they got really low, and that's totally screwed us, which it has, by the way, totally screwed us. And now we're just getting back. But the truth is, the government started suppressing rates back in 2010. And if you can watch this chart go all the way back to 2010, you notice that we had these ultra low government subsidized rates, a government controlled interest rate market. So this problem has been building for 15 years. The problem has been building for 15 years where we've had a very low outstanding rate. And the government has been manipulating the market rate. Well, going after the pandemic, we had massive inflation. The government changed their foot. They took their foot off the gas and put it on the brake. They went from quantitative easing to quantitative tightening, and that's why you see this giant whip go up, right? And that completely shattered the market. But the problem is that was going to happen whether we had the pandemic or not, right? The problem started in 2010, not 2020. The problem just continued or is exacerbated in 2020, but it didn't start then. And yet now, we're at whatever 6 1/8, 6 1/4, maybe 6%, depends on where you work, right? That is, a point to a point and a half below the historic average, below the 40-year average for the 30-year fixed. We're just so used to having these subsidized rates, these government-controlled rates for so long, this 15 years of downhead sledding, that we don't even understand what the neutral rate is or what a healthy mortgage rate is. We just know that the current rates have put us into a housing recession that really affects us and obviously frustrates the heck out of us. And it's a really interesting concept. But I like all four of these charts because it kind of points out, hey, you may not know this, but we're back to what the rates were, the outstanding rates were that we were before the pandemic. And who would have guessed that?
Yeah. And you said 2010, that was in the government's response to the recession, right? In 08,
yeah.
Dodd-Frank.
Well, really, they started responding in 2008, but they really dropped the hammer on bringing rates down to ZIRP, near zero interest rates around 2010. And then that's what created this unbelievable, this big boom, and where you just saw the outstanding rates were higher, much higher than market rates. Mm-hmm. And we're not going to, by the way, the really interesting question is, when do you think we'll see market rates, go below outstanding rates? There's an argument it may not happen for decades.
You really think it'll be that long?
We would have to have an event like the Great Financial Recession or another pandemic or a brutal world war, right? We would have to have something in that nature to get the market rate below the outstanding rate.
Then I'm in favor of the market rate staying higher.
100%, right? Because that's something, David. When people root for lower rates, they're rooting for some sort of cataclysmically bad thing to happen.
Yeah,
and I would rather, and I constantly argue, let's hope for good, right? like I want rates to stay at 6%. That's okay. But what I want is my clients to earn more money, and I want houses to be more affordable. Right. But that's not 6% isn't the problem. It's expensive houses and not earning enough money.
I think you've
right?
had
So
a
let's push on some.
I think you've had a handful of healthy debates with Dave Savage on that one, haven't you?
I've had healthy debates with everybody on that one. But Dave's great. Dave has tons of insights. I pinged him yesterday. I miss talking to him. I've been out traveling the world forever. That's one of the things I miss the most.
Yeah, yeah. Did we have any more slides on that one? I think
We
we
had one
did.
more, but we're
I
good.
think we had one more.
Yeah,
It's the same.
it's the
It's
same
the
thing.
same chart. It's just the one bullet point just changes on them each
Yeah,
time.
they're just highlighting a different facet of it. And this chart's just saying that the outstanding rate's 4.4% right now. But wouldn't that be interesting? Gamble when the outstanding rate crosses the axis with the market rate. If I would have to guess 2040, maybe. If I had to
Yeah.
guess 2040.
No idea.
Yeah, because you don't know what kind of thing from Mars is going to strike us.
What's that?
You
What's
know,
that gambling website where you can just bet on everything and anything?
poly market.
Yeah, I wonder how many people are betting on this kind of stuff.
By the way, I don't know why you asked me that question, David.
You know why I asked you that question, Ron.
Yeah, that's funny.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
we've got we have we've got 5 little rapid fire topics. Our goal is for them to each be 3 minutes long. And let's move to the first one. So what is this one, Ron? Falling mortgage rates further reduce demand in the housing market?
Yeah, this is such a good topic. It's counterintuitive. This came, I think, if I remember right, was this a Wolf Richter article? And that's another person you got to follow. Let me just pitch Wolf from Wolf Street. He has a free newsletter. He publishes every single day. I would say 80% of his content directly applies to us. It's data rich. It's very visual, graphic rich. It's easy to understand. It's counterintuitive. It's outside of the echo chamber from the industry. We've been so wrong for so long because we listen to the same people who are just sycophants to trying to sell us. They're telling us what we want to hear, so we buy their product, we buy their advice. Wolf is completely opposite of that, which I love. He's free to subscribe to, although he does a pledge drive every year, which you get a cool mug. I think I went in the background if you subscribe to it. I don't actually use those in my during our happy hour, David, because they only hold 12 ounces. But but nevertheless, excuse me. So he came up with this. I had an article this week, and it said falling mortgage rates further reduce demand in housing. By the way, David, I'm going to start coughing for 1 second. Put myself on mute.
I've put myself on mute several times, so that's quite all right, Ron. I've been using Wolf as a source for a lot of content that I push out quite a lot, so he's great.
Yeah, he's the best. So and David, I love his article is great. He's like, this is, he said, by the way, not so paradoxically, but when it's not intuitive, why in the world would lower rates slow down, purchase demand, right? But what's so good about this topic, David, and what we talked about and why I'm so eager to talk about it is because there's a shift in the psychology of our consumer. And it's gone from the fear of missing out or FOMO to one of two things, right? The second one is now they either have FOBO, FOBO, which is the fear of better options. Like, I don't want to buy today because interest rates might be better tomorrow. And if I buy today, I'm screwed. And so I have a fear of a better option approaching me, which causes complete paralysis, which, Wolf talks about in his article. But the other acronym you can use, which, by the way, Dave, I don't know if you saw it, Kristen Messerly had a LinkedIn article or post on this today, and that was on the FOR, right? And that's the fear of regret, the fear of making a bad choice. And she had it, by the way, Kristen, great job. You've been doing so much. Kristen, you've been writing so much good content. Dave, I know you're on the board, I think, for some IQ, and you're close to Kristen and Todd and Dave. Man, they are putting. This is the best example. It's the best way to just like David, we're talking about. You haven't used the same loan officer. The best way to get people to join your cause is to give them value, like to help them give them value. And she is putting out such valuable stuff for us. And her LinkedIn article today, I think it was an article, I think it wasn't a post, but an article, was, hey, what's keeping your customers back is this fear of the fear of regret, and so that's really what this article is. We have this fear of better options and this fear of regret is paralyzing our clients, and I love that because that speaks to why we get paid well. That speaks to why we're needed. That speaks to how we beat AI. Why AI isn't going to, AI isn't going to replace me, because we have to be like the arrow searching the target to reach these people that really should own a home, that could benefit from owning a home, but have this paralysis, have all this noise around them. We have to cut through that and help drag them into their future. And I just love that. And I love loan officers that can embrace that, right? Because the ones that do are going to create their own opportunity, like we talked about before. The ones that don't, they may not make it. They may also be joining the school, kindergarten teachers who aren't calling their past clients,
Yep. And then there's the fog's fear of getting screwed. But
There is a fog.
I feel like you just put on your Eric Zier hat and you did a little battle cry there, Ron.
I love Eric Zier, by the way. I was so happy to exchange some texts with him the other day. It was great.
Oh, did you? Did you?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next
Zier.
one. We're talking about Netflix on the next one. Let's go right into the chart.
By the way, David, I almost went, I forget who wrote the book, the arrow doesn't find the target attracts the arrow, Anyway, save that for another time. This is really good. And guys, by the way, for our massive audience, that you may be surprised by the way we create this show. We socialize a bunch of topics, and then we debate them and figure out what you guys might be interested in or what we're interested in talking about. And this topic came up, and the question is, what the hell does this have to do with mortgage? And it's amazing how much it has to do with mortgage. It really is, I think. So here's the thing. Here's what I'm going to boil this down. Back, I don't remember what it was. Back in 2007 or something like that, Netflix paid $1.07 for content for every dollar subscription revenue they had. So they paid more revenue to create content than they had in revenue, which is great. That's why they're losing a ton of money. But this last quarter, which analysts were really frustrated about, they didn't hit their profit goals, which they made a ton of money. I think they only spent something like 40 cents out of every dollar. So they had the highest profit margin in their history. And it was something like that. I might be getting the exact numbers wrong, which I'll get right. It is 40 cents for every dollar, and it was $1.07. And that's back, by the way, in the article, in this Sherwood News article. It went on to say in 2016, when they created Stranger Things, they spent $1.07 in expenses for every dollar of revenue they received. So today they fixed that problem. And what they've done is it's not that they're paying less to create content, is that they have more subscribers. And that's how they become financially viable. That's how they become this massive company. And you go, gosh, what the hell does that have to do with mortgage? Well, mortgages are charged with the same thing. It's the exact same thing. Can we maintain our fixed costs and operations and increase our sales? Because if not, the equation doesn't work. If Netflix would have kept spending the same amount of money on content without getting more revenue per dollar content spent, they couldn't have been viable. Well, mortgage companies have a problem, right? We had 9 quarters where we didn't make any money because the cost to originate and manufacture a loan was greater than the revenue we had. You know what? Those costs aren't really going down. And the cost peaked at around $14,000 per loan. Now it's somewhere around $12,500. It's better, but not significantly better. It's not how much it costs per loan. It's can we get a lot more loans so that we drive the cost per loan down? Does this make sense? So if I'm a IMB and my monthly nut is, let's say, $1 million, right? It's not, at this point, we can't lower that expense down anymore. We can't lower, right, the below the line. Below the line is expenses. The only way forward to succeed is to increase above the line, which is revenue, by keeping our expenses relatively flat. That's what Netflix did to have a breakthrough and become a valuable company. They are the model for what we need to do as mortgage companies, right? Control the below the line expenses and increase revenue. And they're just such a good model for that, Dave.
Why was there, I think you've answered this before, but why was there such a dramatic increase in cost? And then what's been the reason for the slight decrease in the last year or two, whatever it is?
Well, the increase was right sizing. If you had 100 underwriters closing 1,000 loans, and then you dropped to 500 loans, and you still had 1,000 underwriters, you got a little bit of a problem.
Ah,
So there were some problems right sizing, and part of the thing too is historically, the mortgage industry has been a very labor intensive, high cost. And if you think about it, David, if you think about going, the pandemic years where we had a double in volume 2 years in a row, the only lever we could pull was human beings. And so we had to, beg to hire people. We had to pay them whatever they wanted to be paid. And so for processors, in 2020, or let's say an underwriter in 2020, an average underwriter probably got paid around $60,000 a year. By 2022, that number was over 100,000. And so the cost per unit, and then we had to right size, all those things were really tough. Today, I think most lenders have responsibility right size, but they've also brought other efficiencies like technology. They're now using all sorts of things. So they're using technology to try to take some of the low skilled labor, off the process. They are sometimes going to a low cost option. They're offshoring. And so they're saving money, and they're able to do that without laying off folks, because what the plan is look, it's the same plan as Netflix. Amazon. Amazon made a ton of publicity saying, "Hey, AI is going to replace 40% of our staff in the next 10 years." It's not, and it was misleading, because if you read it, it wasn't that it was going to replace it; it was going to replace future growth. So instead of hiring the 300,000 people they would have hired in the past, they're going to leverage technology to do those tasks to make their people more productive. So it wasn't necessarily they're going to have layoffs in that sense. And that's where the mortgage companies, are landing right now too. They don't want to do any more layoffs. They want to keep everybody that's on the team. They just want everybody on the team to be far more productive. But to be far more productive, not only do you need the tools, but you need the volume, right? Like, I might be willing to double my productivity, but you need to give me twice the work. If you don't give me twice the work, I can't double my productivity, and that's kind of what we're facing now. And so when you saw that, I think when you saw that number go from 14,000 per loan to 12.5, it was a little bit of bump in volume, right? Without increasing your fixed costs, and a shift towards more automation and technology to drive those costs down.
all right. These are supposed to be rapid fire run.
You asked me the question, dude. I would have kept sipping my beer.
Let's talk about the dawn of the post-literate society. Did I say that right?
Yeah, this is great. I love this topic right here. And so there's been quite a bit of press about this concept definitely during the year, but the last 6 months. And it's probably as part of that apocalyptic future that AI is going to destroy the world. But it is AI making us stupid? Is technology making us stupid? It's kind of all part of that stream of consciousness. But there is starting to be real data, where people are reading a lot less. They're isolated. They're connecting with people less. Kids in school are performing far, far worse. Their scores are plummeting. And in this is something like, I don't know, 65% of adults will not read a single book this year, which is completely converted. It used to be roughly 70% of adults read a book every year and 30% didn't. Well, now 30% do and 70% don't, And what it's interesting to see what's the impacts of that on society. And so our first chart is data on how 13-year-olds are let's go. Yeah, we'll go that back. So the first chart is the reading habits of 13-year-olds, and so you can see it from 1985 to this year. Only 13 or only about 15% of 13-year-olds actually read for their own self-interest or on their own time, and that's down from 30%, and the number is plummeting. And and they were just using one chart. We could have used adults. We could have used anything. We use this as a representative chart. So the idea
they chose
is that
13-year-olds.
Yeah, it's because they had a firm study on this. That's why they used them, and they trusted the data more. We could have, like I said, used that adult one, but the adult one's harder because if you ask an adult, do you read? They're going to lie. They're going to, yeah, of course I do.
Yeah.
You ask them what they read. Oh, I can't remember. The gist is, well, what's the impact of people not reading? Not only the lower test scores, and of course, there's a lot of other societal things that people suggest. If you look to a philosopher, a political scientist, that democracy can't live with an illiterate society because they're unable to actually critically understand what's true and not true and come to informed decisions. Instead,
Hmm.
they're just sheep being manipulated by their whoever's hurting them. And so, critical thought and reading is the basis of a democracy. And I'm certain we would all argue that's true, and we'd all say the other side is the ignorant side. But so and I love this quote that we skip by, and this is great. And this, by the way, this is from a essay from the Free Press. Which has been getting a lot of press lately because Barry Weiss, the owner of the Free Press, is sold to oh gosh, the parent company is CBS for $150 million. She has this upstart little company called the Free Press, and she is now the producing editor over all CBS News. And it's controversial because she's widely considered to be kind of neutral, and that's freaking CBS out. But nevertheless, so the quote that we're using here is, if the reading revolution represented the greatest transfer of knowledge to the ordinary men and women in history, and that was the argument when the printing presses came out, the society as general went from being illiterate and ignorant, uneducated, because only kings had books, like only the wealthiest people had books. So there was no way to learn. People didn't go to school, but then they created the printing press, which meant anybody could get a book, and you could get a top quality book. You could get tons of books, and you could educate yourself. It was like the democratization of education and knowledge, right? So if the reading revolution represented the greatest transfer of knowledge to ordinary men and women in history, then what James Marriott, who wrote a really interesting book about this, said, the screen revolution represents the greatest theft of knowledge from ordinary people in history. Isn't that such an interesting quote? And it's where you no longer go out there and you no longer have the ability to go out and seek the wisdom you want. Instead, you just accept that whatever somebody's feeding you is true and honest, right? It's what the algorithm is shoving down your social media portal is now all you know, which, as we all know, isn't necessarily the truth.
Yeah. I every week, Ron, we have topics where uh I'm like, we keep on saying that we're gonna have McKenna on this show to get a different generation's perspective. This would be a great one to hear from her. Both I give all credit to my wife Kelly in how avid readers our kids were and still are. Well, I know McKenna is. I'm not sure if Aiden reads much anymore, but it's such a I got the thumbs up for McKenna, but it's so critical, especially in the early and formative years.
David, I mean, it's not only is it education, information, but it's imagination. And it gets those synapses in your brain working, and you're using words you haven't used before, and you're thinking different ways. And you don't like, especially if you read a book, you don't understand what they're saying. You got to chew on it. Like, what did that mean? Like, I don't even understand what that means. Like, what does that mean? And it's just such a good process. And you get exposed to thoughts that you've never been exposed to and concepts. I love that. And I'm
Yeah.
sorry kids are missing out on that today.
No, there's one line from a TV show, Black Mirror, that what you just said made me think of it. I forget the name of the episode, but it's an episode where it's in the future and everyone is just glued to their phones all day, every day, not too dissimilar to where we're at right now. But it was so much so to where you basically were graded, you got points, you would buy stuff based off how nice you were on social media, and the worse of a person you are, you were graded. You couldn't buy a car, if you cuss someone out across the street, and they can report you, and then your credit score goes down. I'm not getting it quite right, but it was an episode where it was all about everything just screen, 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 and a lot of just fake people. And she starts to just hate it. She ends up in jail, and there's a guy across the jail from her, and it's a beautiful line, and I probably told a way longer story than I should have to make it make sense. But they just start yelling at each other and they're like, fine, fine. And he said it would just be a dull world, in reference to always being glued to your screen. It would be a dull world without wonder. And what you said made me think of that, in that imagination, books and these things. I love it, but I kind of hate it as well. They're just ripping imagination away and wondering in the innocence and the beauty of the human mind and wonder.
Yeah, David, I agree. And there's even like shades of it, because purists would say, listen to a book on Audible isn't reading the book,
Hmm.
and you can even go back to Tim Sanders in Love is a Killer app. He spends a third of the book talking about how you should read a book, which is really interesting, down to buy a hardback and here's how you should read it. Here's how you take notes. Here's how you actually digest it. Really interesting. And so part of this illiteracy is saying, hey, look, Audible doesn't really count. It counts for something, but it's not as good as actually a book, right? And some people even argue that, look, reading a book on your Kindle isn't the same as physically holding the book. I don't know if I'm that much of a purist. I think even if you listen to a book, certainly read a book is important. And I can't imagine a world without that. And now I'm on, I'm an Stowers, I'm an extreme, all the Stowers, when we read 1 or 2 books a week, just our nature since I was about 5. So it's a really interesting topic. And David, if you're talking to somebody that never reads, you immediately feel that, right? You're like, oh, you don't read, do you? Anyway, interesting topic.
So a good segue, talking about screens in front of your face all the time. Let's talk about screens in the form of smart glasses, AI glasses. How was that segue?
Yeah, that's great, David. Well, what's so interesting? Just such a good point, David, because everything is just now being fed to us, and going forward, the whole world is going to have a computer talking to them, but they're going to hear it and see it right here. It's going to be 24/7, 365. It's going to know you. Think of like an AI tool, and it's going to be in your ear, and it's going to feed you stuff in glasses or other type of hardware that is going to constantly give you feedback, and now these glasses, they've been trying to build glasses like this for 10. And by the way, I acknowledge, David, you are, tech guy. You are dying to get these glasses. You think it's going to be the best thing in the whole world, and it may be, by the way. But the art, yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm going to say I think it's going to be the best thing in the world, but I think it's a similar leap, not quite as big as when the iPhone came out. They've had smart glasses going back to Google Glass and maybe even before that, but I think this is the first, just like they had cell phones before they had iPhones. I think this new one, the Meta display glasses, is the first one that's actually viable to it be a useful product. I love technology. I love the idea of it, but I'm not sure if I could see myself wearing it. Did you see? I saw a short of Elon Musk on Joe Rogan's podcast just this week, I think, and he predicted in 5 years smartphones and social media and apps won't even exist.
I totally agree with that.
Yep.
I totally agree with that. But getting back to this topic, so the thing that happened is that there's been a bit of a leap from conceptually selling glasses that very few people buy, even the new versions that Meta have. People don't really use them, and Apple doesn't really use them. To the leap is now Amazon has their own glasses, which they're deploying to their 300,000 employees today. And those glasses now, dictate their whole work day, right? This is a view of their glasses. And so the glasses, if you're a delivery person, it gives you driving directions in real time. And by the way, there serves as glasses that help you see day or night, regardless of what your prescription is, see clearly 24 hours a day. And think if you're delivering a package, it's going to acknowledge whether you have the right package or if you put it on the right door. You don't have to, it will do its own verification that you delivered it. It will sense danger for you. Hey, there's a dog in the bushes, or there's a murderer, or there's a puddle. and it's going to constantly give you feedback. It's going to give you directions where you're going. It's going to have you optimize your day. It's asking you how you're feeling, how can you be having a better day, and that's being deployed at scale today, right? And to match them, in the article mentioned Alibaba is doing the same thing. So we've gone from this is a really kind of clever little, cutesy little thing that somebody might have to deployed at scale, driving efficiencies and kind of changing how we go about business.
Yeah. How long ago did Amazon deploy those? And they're not in full deployment now, are they? Or no?
They're through their beta test. They've been testing them, I think, for a year, and now they're starting to deploy them widespread.
Wow. I wonder what the cost of those is.
I'm sure it's not actually all that expensive. And David, another topic we could have related to this, because you said about how we're not going to use cell phones. The next AI, advancement, the thing that will change the world, the revolution, is in robotics. So we're going to have these robots with these AI brains that are fully, physical and can do anything and can think and can be our buddy that will talk to us. We can say, hey, what kind of mortgage should I get? And you can have a conversation with like a loan officer, and it can go get your mortgage for you. And on that topic, did you see where Amazon is suing Perplexity? And it says it said you cannot use your commentary, your AI shopping app on our site because it degrades our customers' experience. And Perplexity is going, screw you. That's just you trying to protect your market share.
Yeah.
It's a huge battle. Really interesting.
Yeah. Is that pretty recent?
Yeah, today.
Oh,
okay. It was in the papers today.
Gotcha. Yeah, I've only been awake for about 45 minutes, so.
That's because you stayed up until sunrise.
All right, let's wrap it up with our final rapid fire topic about food inflation.
Food and we can make this a full topic. So, back in 2022, the whole economy revolted when we got to 9.5% inflation, led by food inflation. The price of food has been ridiculous. Now the price of food, the increases have slowed down, but it doesn't make it cheaper. Right. So we got to food inflation of around 2%, but that is re-accelerating. It's accelerating fast right now. Now, some of that is, not anybody's fault. Like it wasn't anybody's fault, or let's just say it wasn't anybody's fault for the avian, flu that killed, half our chickens, and drove chicken prices and egg prices up. We have the same problem in beef today in that, our beef herds are 40% below average because of drought and other problems and economics. And so we don't have enough beef. And so beef prices are ridiculous. As McKenna, can you bring up the beef price chart?
How much are ridiculous that we consume in the U.S. comes from the U.S.? Do you know?
It's so interesting, David. It's like 80%. And there's a battle royale right now because Donald Trump wants to bring down the cost of the beef by importing it. But the domestic beef growers go, screw you, Mr. Trump. That's not a good plan. And so there's a battle going, understandably, a battle going on. But beef is going up. And by the way, strap on your boots because your turkey is going to cost about twice as much this year.
Oh, is it?
There's not enough supply. So if you had the loss leader historically, let's say your supermarket sold your turkey for 49 cents a pound last year as a loss leader, that loss leader might be 69 or 79 cents a pound or 89 cents a pound. Right now, I'm in a pretty lower, cost food area in Phoenix. Turkeys are selling from anywhere between, $1.20 a pound to $2 a pound, which is crazy, right? And so, but one of the things I was sharing with you, David, I was mostly out of the country for the last 60 days and I got back and I went grocery shopping. I was surprised how much more expensive everything was in 60 days. Jeez. And you guys, we feel the pressure. You go, wow, that was expensive, but it's incremental. Where coming back after 60 days, I was like, holy cow, this is so much more expensive than it used to be, even 60 days ago. I was shocked. A pound of ground beef was $6.99 for like 80% ground beef. It wasn't that when I left, but so this whole and the point why this is so important is, one, it speaks when we feel like we can't afford groceries, we sure as hell don't think we're going to be able to buy a home, right? I mean, sure as hell don't think that, right? The whole psyche changes every time we go to the grocery store. Every time we have to go pay $27 for a case of beer, or $8 for a pound of beef, or $4 for a pound of cheese, right? Our whole mindset goes, screw this. There's no way I'm going to buy $1 million home. And it completely slams, buyer demand in housing and in mortgage. And so that's why we need to pay attention to it. And we have to become super advisors to explain to people how they can and how if they just make the right choices, not just at the grocery store, but the cars they buy, the things they consume, and prioritize, they can still afford a home. But it slams the brakes on demand, David. And I will say one other thing is that we are just now, for the first time in a year, it's been a year, we're going to start to feel the effects of tariffs. So far, contrary to what every analyst and economist predicted, we really haven't seen a lot of inflation coming from the tariffs, because the originating companies and the importing companies swallow that into their margins. They pretty much absorb the increased costs, or they liquidated outstanding inventory that didn't have tariff costs to it. But this Christmas, we're now going to start to feel all those tariffs, because a lot of the goods we buy for Christmas come from countries with high tariffs. David, I was using an example. My Apple Watch conked out about 4 months ago. I had to go get a new one. Went to Costco, cost me $379 for the Series 4, all good. A couple of days ago, Belinda's Apple 4 watch conked out, went to Costco, bought the same watch, $429. The difference was the tariff. That's the only difference on the cost of that watch.
You actually told me that yesterday, and I didn't think about it. It was your watch versus Belinda's?
Same watch.
It's two different sizes. The larger size is more expensive. SKU. Same size.
No, exact same SKU. Yeah, same SKU.
I'm going to challenge you on that one, because there's two different sizes. One traditionally, or one for men, one for women. I'm not saying...
Well, now you're making Belinda feel bad, because she has the same size, dude. I'm telling you, it's the same SKU.
That is a thing. It used to be 42 millimeters, and then the other one was 37 millimeters, something like that, and there was a $50 difference. So sorry to...
No, it was the same size, dude.
Okay, all right. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, I'm not comparing her previous watch. I'm comparing the watch that I just bought 4 months ago versus the watch I bought 1 week ago.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, but and you're going to see that even Christmas decorations, the Christmas lights, those all come from China. They're going to be more expensive, or from Mexico. This stuff we're buying now is being bought after the tariffs were applied, and you're going to see it, and you're going to start to see it in the CPI. Now, why is that important? As a matter of fact, or my LinkedIn post, McKenna, you can tell me, my LinkedIn post tomorrow is on inflation a little bit. Why inflation is now well above 3%, way above the Fed's target rate. It's picking up, and you're going to see through the end of the year, it's going to pick up pretty significantly. And that no matter what the Fed does, they can lower short-term interest rates all they want. There's so much pressure on long-term interest rates that's going to cause a real headwind for mortgage and real estate, which is, again, like I said, make us be super advisors.
Yeah. All right, final thoughts, Ron?
Oh, I've said enough, David. Your eyes are glazing over. You're like, I should have got more sleep last night.
How many hours? How many hours of sleep did I get? I think it was 3.
Yeah.
But hey, I enjoyed that, Ron. Those were some great topics. Ron always leads the way on sourcing our topics, and then he just tells me, you pick them, whichever ones you want out of the 20 potential topics. So I enjoyed those. So Ron, it's good to have you back in the country and back on schedule with our podcast. If you've joined us, we appreciate it. Check us out, littlenessie.com. We've got some fun, exciting things coming down the pike, and later on this year, maybe early next year, we'll see. But if you've joined us, we appreciate it. And Ron, appreciate you. So cheers.
Cheers. And guys, next week we'll be on Thursday, 3:00 Eastern time, 1 noon West Coast time. So check us out live. Show up live. Ask us some questions. Maybe we'll bring back the Who Can Win a Shirt contest.
Oh, I like it. maybe I'll get some new shirts going for next time. But see you next week.
Yeah, get some Christmas shirts going. And I want McKenna. I want to see you on screen next week.
She says,
David,
no.
she blamed you. She said there was technical difficulties and
she
blamed
always,
you.
she always blames me. See you next week.
See you guys.